You won't believe this. One day, while billionaire Elon Musk was deep in thought, tweaking bold rocket designs for his Mars mission, a totally unexpected call from his estranged dad, Elon Musk, hit him like a ton of bricks. Can you even imagine? The guy he barely talks about, who'd been out of his life for years, suddenly pops up demanding a jaw-dropping $20 million for some mysterious mining project in South Africa. He remembered Errol slamming the dinner table, cutting him off mid-sentence about batteries. They haven't changed in 50 years, trust me. Leaving Elon to swallow the excitement that had been blazing inside him. Then, through that haze of pain, his mom, May Musk, flickered into focus like a soft light. His eyes stung, thinking of her bustling to set the table after long modeling gigs, still smiling. "You'll change the world, I know it." She didn't just say it, she made it happen. College bills in Canada, small cash drops when he was scraping by in a rundown apartment, all from her, from modeling jobs she kept doing well past her prime. He never knew, never asked, because Errol always acted like the provider. Now, with the truth spilling out from this call, anger mixed with gratitude surged up. Anger at his dad for turning his mom's quiet sacrifices into a prop for his ego. Gratitude for her giving him wings, even when his dad tried to clip them. He stood, pacing to the window, staring down at the SpaceX factory floor where his team hustled. Those old wounds weren't just baggage, they'd forged him. But today, Errol's voice ripped them open again, and he wondered if he'd ever truly shaken that shadow. Elon Musk stood frozen by his office window at SpaceX, staring at the massive rocket being assembled below. But his mind was miles away, stuck on that call with Errol. Saying no to the $20 million mining ask was a no-brainer. He'd seen his dad's big opportunities turn into hot air before. But then Errol's voice turned icy, sharp as a blade. "I still have your childhood journals." Elon's heart skipped a beat. Journals? Those scribbled pages of blue ink, rocket drawings, wild ideas about humanity's future, even clumsy poems from when he got dumped at 15. His blood rushed, a mix of fury and panic flooding his chest. "You think you're too good to help me?" Errol pressed, his tone slick now, like he'd just played his trump card. The press would eat up the great Elon Musk's teenage ramblings, or your rivals, Blue Origin maybe. They'd love those early designs. Elon's fists clenched, nails digging into his palms until it hurt. This wasn't a money ask anymore. It was blackmail, raw and ugly. He felt exposed. Those private pieces of his youth twisted into a weapon by his own dad. Those journals weren't just paper. They were little Kofi, hunched in his Pretoria bedroom, dreaming of space while Errol sneered and his mom wiped tears away. Now Errol dared to use them against him? He spun back to his desk, breathing hard. Part of him wanted to yell, smash something to shake off the helplessness choking him. But he stopped, took a deep breath. No, he wouldn't let Errol pull his strings like this. He'd been that scared kid under his dad's harsh gaze once. But now he was Elon Musk, builder of Tesla, SpaceX, the guy who turned those journal dreams into reality. Errol could keep the pages, but he couldn't keep the spirit in them. A spark of resolve cut through the anger. If his dad wanted to play dirty, fine. "Do what you gotta do," he said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "But if you release them without my okay, I'll sue you for all you've got." When the call ended, Elon sank into his chair, hands trembling. He wasn't afraid of what was in those journals, just a kid's big dreams, nothing to be ashamed of. But the sting of betrayal, from the one guy who should have had his back, hit hard, a dull ache in his chest. He looked out at his team busting their butts below and told himself, Errol could threaten all he wanted, but he couldn't touch what Elon had built. Never. Seriously? 20 million? Just to fund what Errol called a chance bigger than your cars or rockets? The nerve of that ask would leave anyone speechless, even a guy used to dealing with huge numbers like Elon. Picture it. Elon's in his SpaceX office, afternoon sun streaming through giant windows, holographic rocket models floating in front of him. And then, bzzz, his phone goes off. An unknown international number flashes on the screen, South Africa's country code. Elon Musk sat alone in his home office, the dim glow of his laptop lighting his face, but his focus wasn't on work anymore. In front of him was an old beat-up box, Mom's box, he called it, stuffed with childhood keepsakes he rarely dared to touch. Tonight, after that tense call with Errol, he couldn't resist digging in. As faded papers spilled onto the floor, tuition receipts, letters, bank transfers, his heart started pounding, like he'd stumbled onto a secret buried too long. He flipped through them line by line, and the truth slammed into him. It wasn't Errol who paid for his Canadian college or sent cash when he was broke. It was his mom, May Musk, scraping by with modeling gigs into her 50s, even taking loans against her retirement to keep him going. He slumped to the floor, hands shaking as he held a receipt with her name on it. A lump rose in his throat. All these years he'd bought, or never questioned, that Errol, harsh as he was, at least footed the bill for his start. But no, that was a lie his dad let him believe, while May worked herself to the bone, keeping it quiet to shield him. "She never told me," he whispered, voice cracking in the empty room. She'd let Errol strut around like the provider, just to spare him more hurt from a dad who already gave plenty. His eyes burned, not from anger, but from a deep ache mixed with gratitude. He grabbed his phone, dialed her number, not caring how late it was. When May's warm, worried voice answered, "Elon, you okay?" He blurted out, "Why didn't you tell me it was you? Why let me think it was him?" A pause, then her sigh. "What good would it do? You had enough to deal with from your dad." His chest felt heavy, not just from her sacrifice, but from how she'd carried it silently so he could keep moving forward without extra baggage. Then Reed walked in with a thick file. "That mining project? It'd wreck the water supply for 3 villages," he said, voice low. Elon stared at the maps, the numbers, and disgust churned in his gut. Not only a liar, Errol was ready to trash the environment for a buck, even using Elon's name to scam investors. His fists tightened, anger flaring, but beneath it was sadness. For the dad he'd once hoped could be better, sinking this low. The truth, painful as it was, painted a clear picture. His mom lifted him up, while his dad was the hurdle he had to climb over. Elon Musk sat in his SpaceX office, the flicker of his computer screen the only light, but his fingers weren't typing code anymore. A stack of papers sat before him, not rocket blueprints or financials, but pages he'd just poured out from deep inside. After days wrestling with Errol's blackmail, a wave of raw emotion hit him. Anger, exhaustion, but above all, resolve. He couldn't let his dad keep spinning a fake tale. Couldn't let those childhood journals become a weapon. He took a deep breath, his chest loosening after weeks of tension, and started writing, not to argue with Errol, but to reclaim his own damn story. Every word cut into the past. He wrote about sleepless nights in Pretoria, little Kofi surrounded by computer parts, eyes lit with dreams Errol called junk. He wrote about the sting of his dad's laughter, a sound that stuck with him like a bad song. Then he wrote about May, sending cash, working connections to give him a shot. Truth he'd only just uncovered, making his eyes sting as he typed. His hands shook, not from fear, but from a new strength. He wasn't Errol's punching bag anymore. He was the one telling it straight. And this was his reality. Sending those pages to Errol with a short note, he didn't flinch like before. "Publish what you want," he wrote, his inner voice firm. "I'm not scared of my story." He said no to the 20 million, not just because of old wounds, but because that mining gig was an environmental train wreck, a cold, hard business call, true to who he'd become. Heat surged through him, thinking of Errol's nerve, but there was relief too. Mailing that package felt like dropping a weight he'd carried too long, not to patch things up, but to sever the invisible leash his dad had yanked for years. When it was gone, Elon stood, stepping onto the balcony overlooking the SpaceX floor. Machines hummed, his team turning dreams into steel. His chest felt lighter, like he'd walked out of a stuffy room. Errol could do whatever. Leak the journals, write a book, keep lying, but Elon didn't care anymore. He'd faced the past head on, said no loud and clear, and now he was free. Who'd have guessed? He hesitates, finger hovering over decline, but something stops him cold. He hits accept, and there's that voice, Errol's, "Hey, son." Holy crap, no worry. After 5 years and 2 months of silence, like Errol's been keeping a tally, he's calling now. Not to catch up, not to mend fences, but to ask for cash. It's like the floor dropped out from under Elon right then and there. And he smirked, not from winning, but from finally finding himself. Not the scared kid under his dad's thumb, but the man who carved his own path. Elon Musk sat in his SpaceX office, eyes locked on his screen as Jasmine's text popped up. "Your dad's holding a live press conference from Pretoria." A chill shot down his spine, his grip tightening on the desk. What now? After sending Errol his raw truth and a flat-out no, he'd braced for a counterpunch. Maybe the journals leaked, a book of lies, or more media jabs. But when he clicked the live stream, what he saw made his heart pound. Not from anger, but from a shock he couldn't wrap his head around. Errol stepped up to the mic, looking older than Elon remembered, his voice steady. "I'm donating the Eastern Cape mining rights to the Conservation Trust. No development, ever." Elon blinked, stunned. What the hell? The dad who'd blackmailed him, pushed that toxic project, was walking away from it? His chest tightened, a mix of doubt and a faint flicker of hope. "The environmental cost is too high," Errol went on. "The watershed's got to stay safe." Elon froze. This wasn't the Errol he knew, the guy who'd put profit over everything. A reporter asked what changed his mind, and Errol paused, then said, "Sometimes your kids teach you a thing or two." Those words hit Elon like a jolt. Not painful, but waking him up. Days later, a package from South Africa landed in his hands. He opened it, fingers trembling, unsure what to expect. Inside were his childhood journals, untouched, no threats attached. Then a medical report. Errol had early-stage cognitive decline, and a short letter. "You made it, despite me, not because of me. That's your win, my loss." Elon read it twice, a knot in his throat. No big apology, no fairy tale makeup, just a bare-bones truth he'd never heard from his dad before. His eyes burned, not from sadness, but from a strange mix of pity and relief. The father who'd haunted him was facing his own mess, finally seeing him for who he was. He stood, pacing to the bookshelf where the journals now sat out in the open. He wasn't afraid of them anymore, but that letter left him reeling. Was this real change, or a last play from a fading man? He called Tuska, voice rough. "He really did this?" When she confirmed, he sank into his chair, hands cradling his head. Part of him still doubted, but part, the little Kofi inside, felt an old scar soften, not heal completely, but enough to breathe easier. Errol wasn't a threat anymore, just a dad trying to fix something, even if it was too late. Elon Musk stood on the SpaceX rooftop, the night breeze brushing his hair as he gazed at the starry sky, where his dreams were taking shape. Below, engineers hammered away at the Mars-bound rocket. But his mind drifted to the past few months, from Errol's money grab to facing down his history. His chest felt lighter than ever, like he'd shed a boulder he'd hauled for years. When Errol ditched the mining deal, returned the journals, and owned up to his failures, Elon didn't feel smug, just a quiet freedom, deep and real, like the sky clearing after a storm. He walked inside, eyes landing on the journals on his shelf. No longer threats, just proof of his path. He remembered the night he wrote his truth for Errol, hands shaky, but heart steady. Back then, he thought he was fighting his dad, but now he saw it was about setting himself free. He wasn't that scared kid flinching at Errol's sneers anymore, or haunted by "you'll fail" ringing in his ears. He'd stared that ghost down, not with rage, but by living true. Building Tesla, SpaceX, turning journal scribbles into reality. He smirked faintly, feeling like he'd reclaimed a piece of his soul he'd lost along the way. Then he thought of that letter from a Pretoria student, living in his old family home thanks to the May Musk Fund. "Your story pushes me forward," she wrote, with sketches for better solar storage. Reading it, his eyes stung, not from pride, but from realizing his pain wasn't for nothing. The times Errol shot him down, the lonely nights grinding in Canada, they'd brought him here, and now they were lifting others up. He ran a hand over the letter, a rare warmth swelling inside. And get this, Errol didn't just ask for money, he pitched it like some grand vision, saying it's a chance to work together as father and son, that it could revolutionize battery tech and top anything you've done. Are you kidding me? The same dad who mocked his rocket dreams, called them nonsense, now wants in on the empire Elon built from scratch? The gall of it's unreal. He didn't need Errol's nod anymore, but knowing his story, scars included, could help someone else through their dark days that made his heart race. He glanced out at the rocket glowing under the lights. Errol wanted cash and clout, but ended up with a different legacy, late as it was, backing new dreamers. Elon, scared of his past being exposed, found peace instead. He didn't need to fix history, just learn from it and let it go. He breathed deep, freedom sinking into every inch of him. Not perfect, but real. His phone buzzed. "Mom, better than okay?" "I told the truth, all of it." Her reply, "Proud of you, always." Tears slipped out, not from hurt, but because he'd finally found himself. Among the stars he'd always chased. Over the phone, Elon even hears ice clinking in a glass. Errol's old whiskey habit from those tense childhood dinners, when he'd lecture Elon about grades or shoot down his ideas. And now he's got the smooth talk, like nothing's ever been broken between them. What's wilder still is how it all kicked off. One simple call that spiraled into a full-blown drama. Blackmail, public fights, buried childhood secrets dragged into the light. Who'd have thought a money grab could spark a family showdown the whole world would watch? And Elon's response, less about words, more about what he did next, would leave anyone's jaw on the floor. Elon Musk sat there, gripping his phone tight, his breath heavy as Errol's voice crackled through the line. 5 years, 2 months since they last spoke, and yet just "hey son" was enough to yank him back to those raw, bruising days growing up in Pretoria, South Africa. His chest tightened, the air in his SpaceX office suddenly thick. Memories flooded in uninvited. Errol's heavy footsteps on the hardwood, looming in his bedroom doorway, his cold eyes glaring down at the computer parts Elon was piecing together. "What's this mess now?" he'd barked, his tone dripping with scorn, making young Elon's hands shake with shame. "I'm building a computer, Dad," he'd tried to explain, but Errol just scoffed. "Books are for losers who couldn't make it," and walked off, leaving him feeling tiny and dumb. Those long nights after, when the house was asleep, Elon stayed up, eyes burning from no sleep, stubbornly wiring circuits to prove him wrong. But every flop, like when the computer wouldn't boot without a power supply, echoed Errol's voice in his head. "Wasting your time." The hurt wasn't just the words. It was how he crushed Elon's dreams, from sloppy rocket sketches to solar energy ideas.
I was just a boy with dreams too high, building rockets in the dark of night. You laughed and said it's all for fools, but I kept going, breaking all the rules. Now you're calling like a ghost from the past, asking for a future built to last. You think I owe you, but you don't see the fire inside was never yours to keep. I rise beyond the shadows, through the storm, through the pain. Every scar became my power. Now I'm free, unchained. You can't break me, can't erase me. I've already won this fight. I rise beyond the shadows, burning brighter than the night. Pages worn, stories told, memories buried but never cold. You held my past like a loaded gun, but I've outgrown the fear, I won't run. Now you're fading like a whisper in the wind. No more weight from the chains you held me in. You can't steal what's mine to write. The stars are calling and I'm taking flight. I rise beyond the shadows, through the storm, through the pain. Every scar became my power. Now I'm free, unchained. You can't break me, can't erase me. I've already won this fight. I rise beyond the shadows, burning brighter than the night. I see now, the truth is clear. You never built me, you were just the fear. But fear is weak and dreams are strong. I've had the fire inside me